Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so I talked with the admin, I talked with the player. It seems like Panda Bear Me is done for the day, and so is Cham, who is going to be playing, or I guess potentially playing, in the finals day. So Panda Bear Me and Cham have both qualified, as well as Kelazor getting a 3-0 over Crayon. Bales is currently playing versus Eric. Huck is waiting for the winner of Intense versus Juggernaut Jason, which we casted ages ago. So that's, Huck is probably playing one of those two. He's probably playing Juggernaut Jason, I mean. JonSnow versus PiLiPiLi is happening right now, though. Oh my god, and that is a qualifying match. JonSnow has been in the game for 17 minutes, and PiLiPiLi has been in the game for 17 minutes. Oh boy. So we are going to try and figure out what games are available for casting right now. We'll look to see if Bales is out of game. Bales is in game. No, Bales is offline. Bales is off. No, Bales is online. He just came back online. Did you finish versus Eric? So we're gonna ask him if he's finished versus Eric. If he hasn't, then we're gonna hop into that match because I think that's one of the few I can see. Schnitzel versus True is also happening as a qualifying match, and we have Nice versus, I suppose, the winner of Risk versus Zeno. As well, yeah, Risk ended up beating BioIce. Okay, Bale's already finished versus Eric. Alright, so taking a look at his match history, it looks like he 3-0'd him, so Bales does also end up qualifying. We're looking around for any other matches that are going on. Any other matches. So Bales is done, Cham is done. Is Cuddle Bear? I'm just going through the list of players still in the chat channel. Cuddle Bear is knocked out. Eric's knocked out. Who else? Bonkers was knocked out. Kelazor is done. King McGregor is done. JonSnow's out of game. JonSnow's out of game. That means PiLiPiLi is out of game. Did you and PiLiPiLi finish playing? So if they are not finished, then that is a qualifying match, and that is a rivalry that has extended through time itself. It is a rivalry that has existed for a millennia at this point. One of my favorite North American rivalries, JonSnow versus PiLiPiLi. Haven't seen them play versus each other for a while though, so I'd love to catch this if it's not finished. Let's see, taking a look at the rest of the bracket though, because we just want to make sure there's no other matches. I don't see Huck. Where is Huck? I don't see Xenocider either, so Huck and Xenocider may just be in game right now. Let's see. Let Panda Bear Me. I think melee upgrades with Hydra Ling Lurker is actually pretty common. Oh, okay. Well, I just don't know anything about StarCraft. Well, good to know. It's not what I've generally seen, which is definitely, I guess, what makes it interesting. Generally, I feel like I end up seeing like the ranged upgrades. Okay. So, let me ask PiLiPiLi. Have you and JonSnow finished? So I messaged both JonSnow and PiLiPiLi. Invite to the next game. Alright, so sweet. We are going to be able to cast this. Let me get their names up on the board. This is a qualifying match. Winner will move on to the finals day. The loser will have to try their luck tomorrow in the second qualifier. Alright, let me make sure my overlay doesn't break. Cool. And we'll get the score. As PiLiPiLi has been playing damn well lately. He has been playing exceptionally well lately. So my guess is that PiLiPiLi is ahead. We're gonna find out. Yeah, PiLiPiLi is ahead by 2-1, so JonSnow still able to take a game off of PiLiPiLi. Maybe it's that mental block from the best of 69. We're gonna wait to find out. Next map, it looks like in game number 4 for this qualifying match is going to be Apotheosis. So we'll see you guys there in a little bit, but first I'm gonna hop over to my handy dandy match history screen because I want to show you guys how epic this rivalry is. So first of all, we got these two players, blah, blah, blah. Here's JonSnow, here's PiLiPiLi. They've both done quite well for themselves. JonSnow won a $10,000 tournament in China that not a lot of people went to, so a lot of people say, well, he's won a lot there, but they're fairly evenly matched. PiLiPiLi, you can see those win rates are definitely showing he's feeling quite confident lately. But taking a look at the match history, you guys can see 8-8. They are dead even in match series scores. But PiLiPiLi has been winning the last 3 times they face off against each other, and these are all in the past 2 months. Before that, JonSnow was winning back way in February. It could definitely go either way. I really do feel like it can go either way, but PiLiPiLi is going to be favored. Ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping into it in game number 4. Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have, as I turn on the game sounds, the red Zerg player from Team Flipside Tactics. Give it up for JonSnow. And his opponent spawned down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. We have the blue Protoss player from Storm Gaming. It's PiLiPiLi. The man who has... And I was telling, actually, Artosis about this. Because Artosis had this very limited experience. It was at the community summit. Oh, hold that thought. We do have an early pool coming out over here for JonSnow. I don't think it's a... No, this is not an extraordinarily early pool, is it? 1 minute, 30 seconds. I think this is a fairly early pool. This might be like a 14, 12 or something along those lines. I'm not going to pretend like I can identify it at this stage in the game. But it is going to be a much earlier pool than you generally see. And this is going to be a nice map for it because this map, Apotheosis, does have a very wide open natural expansion. It takes quite a few buildings to completely wall in. And PiLiPiLi is going to be sending out the probe scout, eventually going to get the scout out just before, I think, JonSnow is able to get those Zerglings outside past that gold expansion. The gold expansion is being taken over here. PiLiPiLi will scout that out, which is going to be nice, but he's also going to, most importantly, scout out these Zerglings as they make their way across the map. Now, drones being made behind this. JonSnow's not looking to go for an all-in, but these 4 Zerglings are looking to try and maybe catch PiLiPiLi off guard and also deal with a potential all-in. We don't really know what happened in the previous games in this series. We just know that the score is currently... Oh, wait, hold on. I have the score wrong. 2-1 in favor of PiLiPiLi. So PiLiPiLi may have gone for some kind of proxy 3-gate or something along those lines and thrown JonSnow for a loop, but JonSnow not going to be able to get inside, or shouldn't be able to get inside the natural expansion with those early Zerglings. Adept is going to be making its way across the map, and I like the fact that he sends it along 2 different pathways just to see if those Zerglings are trying to move over to the front, so you can know as if he has to chrono boost out a Zealot or just getting ready for the defensive position. But this gold expansion is going to be coming up fairly early on, so JonSnow is going to get a nice little boost, and I'm really, really curious. I haven't seen a lot of professional games on this map. I've tried playing some games on this map, and this gold expansion is kind of hit or miss, I feel like. The rock tower is obviously going to be a big pain point if your opponent knocks down the rock tower and cuts you off before you actually are able to secure your 3rd expansion. If you don't have your units positioned on the wrong side of it, you can be in a world of trouble, of course. But more so just that this is a big choke point. This is a really, really big choke point I feel like Protoss players can try and abuse. And I'm interested to see if this is going to come back to haunt JonSnow. JonSnow is what I like to call the low drone king. He loves sitting on very, very low drone counts and just flooding tons and tons of units, making all kinds of damage happen. He's sitting on 24 drones, still droning up right now and getting up his Spore Crawler, playing it out, I would say, fairly safe with the Spore Crawlers at each one of these bases, as he did see the Stargate. He's also going to be able to deny a 3rd expansion for a little bit. That's really nice. Has more of these Zerglings coming on in. Definitely a few more than I think PiLiPiLi may have been anticipating at this stage, considering that PiLiPiLi didn't really go for the big Adept harassment. In fact, where did that Adept go? Looks like the Adept did end up falling. Not really killing off a ton of anything, just killing off 4 Zerglings. Maybe even less because it looks like the Mothership Core was killing off some of those. The third expansion finally does go up over here for PiLiPiLi. And I'd love to see him start maybe working on those rocks, because you never want a situation where your gold expansion or your third expansion is just completely cut off from your natural expansion, because your opponent knocks down the rocks when you're out of position, or heck, even the vice versa of that, where the rocks get knocked down when you're in your third. You're getting ready to defend your third, you got all your depth position over here, maybe you're thinking about moving out, so you're keeping your units over here, and then your opponent's army moves in over here, knocks down the rocks, and just starts picking away at your army. You have to walk this very long distance all the way around, through another choke point, up here, up the ramp, and too much happens in that time, just too much. Looks like the Oracle's not quite able to make any damage happen just yet, as there are those Spore Claws over there, but joining in with the Adepts is going to be a pretty strong strategy. As throwing down a Revelation on it looks like some of the units, we had it on at least one of the Queens. It does end up expiring as the Oracles try and go after the Queens. Not quite able to make a whole lot happen, as the Adepts do get fully surrounded over here. Now, it does have their backs against each other, so it's not totally the worst engagement that could potentially happen, but still, losing every single one of those Adepts, trading out only versus Zerglings, not the most ideal trade for PiLiPiLi. Keeps the Oracles alive at least, so he's going to be able to use those if this does go to Lurkers, but it doesn't look as going to Lurkers anytime in the immediate future, as we have a Baneling Nest going up. We have the Hydralisk Den eventually coming up behind it, but fourth expansion also being thrown down. PiLiPiLi finally getting those 5th and 6th gas geysers for that gold expansion, going to have that nice flood of Zerglings. And someone is so kindly in the chat. Unfortunately, it looks like they got killed by Nightbot, but I do appreciate it. It was Kathahapa. That's a really cool name. Thank you so much. I will check out to see how to properly pronounce this name later on. That is something I do want to do. So I will check out that link. I have it despite it being timed out. Do not worry, your job has been done. Blink is being researched and a lot of warp gates are being added on. We're seeing 8, 9 warp gates being added on right now, going up for the total of 3 to a total of 10. So, or sorry, no, not what I suck at math. Oh my god, math on stream. 3 plus 9 is 12, so 12 warp gates. So he's going to be setting up for a very, very strong gateway-oriented push that could really punish JonSnow. He's not going to have the robotics facilities done that a lot of Protoss players really like. He's going to have one robotics facility that's going to be able to make out, yeah, a warp prism or an observer or two. But he's not going to have double immortal production or anything along those lines coming out. He's really relying on brute force, just pure warp-ins, and he's going to be able to have those extra gateways because he's got a gold expansion. He's going to have those extra minerals that he's mining, and because of that, he's going to be able to get out more Adepts or maybe more Zealots, whatever he ends up deciding to warp in. But here we go. He moves along the top right-hand side of the map. I think that a Zergling is very, very close to scouting out a lot of the units, and there it is. He sees the units moving out. He's repositioning his army as it looks like the Queens are already a Revelation, as well as a couple of those Hydralisks. So PiLiPiLi knows he's going to be going straight into the Hydralisk Den, no pun intended. Big warp in of Adepts is going to be really, really nice over here. Throwing down another Revelation, saying, well, you know what? I got to be prepared in case you start making some of those Lurkers. The Lurker Den is finished up, and Lurkers are being morphed, but they are not here in for the fight immediately, and it looks like this fourth expansion could very well go down before they actually start to get involved in the fight. Nice force field wall, and does completely prevent the Lurkers from getting too far involved in the fight. Zergling's also having a lot of trouble, and PiLiPiLi is getting some really nice pickoffs without really losing a whole lot, but here we go. Force fields do expire on the south side. PiLiPiLi is now trapped in over here. He has to blink out and ends up losing a lot of units as the Lurkers are burrowed right on top of all these sentries. Almost every single one of them is going to end up falling, and the ones that do remain do not have any energy left over to force field and delay this army. JonSnow has a very, very solid defense, and that was, I won't say an all-in from PiLiPiLi, but he needed to make some damage happen. He needed to make something more happen. The fourth expansion got so close to dying, but didn't quite. PiLiPiLi doesn't have a tech transition. That's the biggest problem. He's trying to throw up that second robotic facility behind it. He only has one immortal out on the map. He doesn't have disruptors on the way. He doesn't have a Templar Archives with Psystorm like State did to take a really good engagement versus a large number of these Zerglings, but here we go. We got +1 ranged attack from JonSnow, but now he's mixed it up into the +1 missile attack, or melee attack. So a little bit different from that style from Panda Bear me, just to validate myself and say, well, it's not every Zerg player goes for just pure melee upgrades. Zerglings are going to be flooding around in. It looks like there may have been some potential for harassment. I guess he saw the Phoenix and kind of freaked out about it. Maybe think it was a warp prism, but well, another warp prism is going to be made. PiLiPiLi really doesn't have a lot of options. He tries to go for a 4th expansion. The nice thing about this map is if you defend your 3rd expansion in your natural, then you're also pretty much defending your 4th expansion. It's a pretty easy move in from this expansion over to this one. I like the fact that PiLiPiLi is just kind of moving around with only the stalkers though. This is really cool because he's going to be able to get some nice pickoffs. He's going to be able to keep JonSnow at home and force him to make a lot of units right now while he continues to try and pump out as many immortals as possible. Needs to utilize this other robotic facility though. He has the resources for it, but is not making a second immortal right now. Those immortals are going to be so important. Templar Archives also being made. Stalkers are starting to get run down, so he's going to have to be careful. Blink was on cooldown for a little bit as he tried to blink on out. But this is the big attack that PiLiPiLi is going to have to try and deal with. And he's engaging versus only half the army right now. So this could work out quite well. No carapace upgrades and +2 weapons is finished up over here. So he's going to be able to 2-shot those Zerglings with all those Zealots on the front line. I love that PiLiPiLi is making Zealots instead of just Adepts. Zealots do better if they have better upgrades versus Zerglings. But well, some Banelings getting some nice shots. Stalker's blinking on forward. He has Revelation thrown down on top of all the Lurkers. He's getting some okay pickoffs, but and keeping the Immortals alive for at least a little bit. Another one of the Immortals going to fall on the top side. No more Immortals on the way. The robotic facilities are getting focused fire down and even throws down a contamination, halting any Immortal production. PiLiPiLi is got to rely on this next warp-in round, but he has the resources. He just needs to wait for it to finish up. Once it does, he can maybe make something happen, but he already lost his 4th expansion. Is it a little bit too late for anything to actually work out over here? Yeah, he may be able to clean this up, but even more reinforcements coming on in. GG gets called. PiLiPiLi gonna tap out, and JonSnow ties up the series 2-2, bringing it to the ace match. As my victory screen just refuses to actually transition to, there we go. And that is so sick. I want to just say, for a series where they're both sitting 8-8 in total match series or series score. That's not map score, by the way. It's that series score, 8-8. They both won 8 series versus each other. And now we're going to the ace match in what's going to be the tiebreaker for this. And this is not even just, you know, it's a tiebreaker like fairly often because they're back and forth. PiLiPiLi won the last 3 times that they face off against each other. So this is going to be a tiebreaker that has not happened for a little bit. PiLiPiLi was actually pretty far behind JonSnow for a while. And now he's finally been able to catch up and maybe make something happen over here. The map score also will be absolutely ridiculous because they played a best of 69 that I forced them to play against each other. So JonSnow took that pretty one-sidedly for the most part. I think it was like 35-15 or something. So JonSnow is just he's gonna have a better map score for a very long time. Unless we do a giant rematch and PiLiPiLi like evens that up somehow, then I'm expecting this to be a pretty one-sided map score rivalry. But series score is what we're going to be focusing in on. 2-2 in this particular game, and 8-8 in total series score. We're hopping onto the map Kings Sejong Station for our ace match and potentially our last match of the day if there are no other matches going on. I want to note really quickly before we hop into the map intro, Huck, Bales, Kelazur, Cham, Panda Bear Me, and True have all qualified. Xeno is currently playing versus Nice, and that is the other last match that's happening right now to determine who's going to qualify. We're hopping into it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you guys there on Kings Sejong Station. When I think about North American StarCraft rivalries and why I get excited, these are the 2 players that come first to my mind about players that have a deep, rich history against each other. And we are here in the ace match. Get your ace matches out in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, because spawning over in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the red Zerg player from Flipside Tactics, another team rivalry that also exists. We have JonSnow on the cold, wintry map that unfortunately is not spawning on the north side because he would have been defending the north. But up in the top left-hand corner of the map, the blue Protoss player from Psystorm Gaming, which has a rivalry with Flipside Tactics as another NA team. Give it up for PiLiPiLi, the man who's been on an absolute tear lately, but is so close to letting this qualifier spot slip through his grasp. Well, we got a low ground gateway and Cybernetic Core coming out. Again, very, very common to see these days, just because if you don't go for those low ground wall-ins, you're just not going to get that wall-in up in time. Of course, it does come with the risk that if your opponent goes for the early pool, you can potentially lose this pylon very early on. There's no way you get, even with the early low ground wall-in, there's no way you complete this wall-in. And it becomes a totally different style of defense that you have to get up. It can be a lot more difficult. But we don't see that out of JonSnow. In fact, JonSnow is just going to be droning up, getting up 4 Zerglings, not even a pool first or anything. It was a hatch first. And we are going to see this move into the later stages of the game. Stargate opening coming out from PiLiPiLi. Once again, part of the wall-in has this small little choke point that can use as that opening. I don't think Archons can get out, and that might be something worth considering later on. Doesn't come into play too often, but certainly something of note. I suppose also Ultralisk won't be able to make it through there. So, already preparing for the Ultralisk transition from JonSnow. Third expansion is going to go down. This is one of the really weird things about this map. I always, just gut reaction, I look at this map and I talk with people and they all say third expansions on this map are a little bit harder to defend than many other maps because it's so far back and there's this very wide open area where Zerg players can maneuver around and get over into a nice position to assault the third. And same thing for Protoss players assaulting the third. And you can get in between the natural expansion and the third expansion. You move through this kind of weird choke point over here as well as over here. If your opponent's army is already sieged up in a nice spot, it can be very difficult to defend if your opponent gets in the right spot early enough. But very often I end up seeing players have very easy defense to the third. And I see very often players taking thirds much earlier on than many other matchups. So I will admit I do not know necessarily the details of why that ends up happening, but I do feel like we could end up seeing some kind of punishment happening over there. Looks like a Phoenix does come out and is able to pop off that first Overlord. So no immediate Oracle opening. We might see Oracles coming out later on if this does go to a macro game, and it does seem like it probably will, and it also seems like JonSnow will probably go toward the Lurker tech once again. No big surprise there. But as the Phoenixes take out JonSnow's vision out on the map, he stays ever vigilant with his Zerglings continuously moving around, looking around for any proxy pylons, adepts that could be hidden away, as oftentimes a lot of pros players like to hide 3. This is a very common spot to hide 3 adepts. You hide them right in over at this small little area right here, and they form a complete wall. Not a lot of surface area for Zerglings to deal with. It can be very annoying, but for now, PiLiPiLi just going to try and grab that third expansion. He's warping his adepts, only sitting on those 3 warp gates. Going to try and take out Probe, not quite able to make it. Probe lives to mine another day. And we got a Twilight Council researching Resonating Glaives. So is this going to be a big follow-up with a Roboxley producing just a straight-up Warp Prism and pumping out a ton of gateways? Is he going to go up to that massive gateway count and go for a big Resonating Glaives push? Or is this just going to be a bit of a lighter push in? Moving out with maybe 4 or 5 gateways and just continuously warping into depths, trying to keep JonSnow honest while he gets up his tech with the double robo behind it. That could very well be a possibility. Right now, it's just that 1 robo, though. Phoenixes are also continuing to put pressure on the other side of the map, making sure that JonSnow's making his Spore Crawlers, making sure that he's making his Queens, and just killing off whatever drones that he can. But Lair Tech has been finishing up for JonSnow, and I'm imagining that because we do already have the Roach Warren down, yep, immediate, well, I was going to say a Hydral Sen being plopped down most likely, but yeah, Lair Tech is still just finishing up. Evolution Chamber coming out, and likely going to be getting up that +1 missile attacks upgrade. Galileo Reconstitution comes out. PiLiPiLi sees not the Evolution Chamber, but still might be able to assume that upgrades are going to be coming. Most players do like to get upgrades in this game. But there it is, +1 ranged attacks. Zerglings staying ever vigilant for 4th expansion potential, and probably want to get a scout out on the army composition. He's going to move in over here. He's going to scout out that there is the Roboxlody over there, and the Phoenixes are continuing to do little bits and pieces of damage. He sees some of these adepts in fairly large number, but where is the rest of the army? I mean, there isn't really an immortal. The Warp Prism is still sitting back at home on the other side of the map in the natural expansion, so JonSnow may be a bit wary, seeing, oh, well, you know, you have your third, you don't really have a fourth. I didn't see big immortal count, and I didn't really see the Robotics Lily popping out for another immortal, so where is your army? You've got to be moving it across the map soon. And it's not going to be a huge army over here, but it's still going to be enough that it can shade around, and hey, with Resonating Glaze, if it was just Adepts and Phoenix, he'll be able to take out all these queens, but he is not, so he's going to have to try and shade around the army, or at least use these shades to pull JonSnow's army back, and that's exactly what he does. He doesn't want to overcommit over here. Dark Shrine following up, and that is no surprise. If you have seen any games of PiLiPiLi that have made it past the 3 base mark, then you know he will have a Dark Shrine. That without fail, PiLiPiLi gets a Dark Shrine if it goes to 3 bases or later. If he's well saturated on all 3 bases, there's no reason for him not to get a Dark Shrine, because it's a nice way to put pressure on your opponent with a low supply. A low supply form of harassment. That's the biggest thing that DTs act as. Adepts do end up having to cancel their shade, but guess what? The Adepts in the Warp Prism are able to unload over the natural expansion, taking out the Queen. The Queen, in all honesty, is going to be able to buy a lot of time. Could even throw down a Transfuse on that, as finally PiLiPiLi starts focus firing down some of these drones, getting up a couple of kills. Definitely not too bad, with Resonating Glaze going to kill off quite a few, but it's purely a Queen defense over here, as all of the other army units are making their way across the map, but there's not even that many roaches. I don't really know if this engagement is going to go that well for JonSnow. There's a lot of Zealots, and they do not have charge just yet, so maybe he can kite his way to victory over here. Guess what? Corrosive Bile also going to be rather effective, as these Zealots are going to have a hard time running away from them. Photon Overcharge is going off, and an Immortal pops out at the absolute perfect time. Gonna maybe need another Immortal, though, as these Zealots are definitely getting picked apart very, very quickly. Again, with no charge upgrade, I feel like that's gotta have been a mistake. Nobody gets that many Zealots and doesn't go for charge, but here we go. The DT Warpin, gonna be the saving grace, cleaning up all of the roaches inside the natural expansion, is gonna end up saving his Immortal with a nice lift up, and is gonna be able to at least buy a little bit of time until Immortal barriers come back, but hey, these DTs, they buy so much time. He loses a lot of the Zealots, but to be entirely honest, even losing the Immortal obviously sucks, but if you're gonna lose units as a Protoss player, you'd prefer there were Zealots over anything else. Anything that costs gas. He can warp those Zealots back in. He's got a lot of warp gates. He's still sitting on a healthy 3-base economy. And he's going to be up against a large number of queens that are now making their way across the map. And this is going to be the big attack number 2, part 2. Hydralisks are out, or potentially out, as he has the Hydralisk Den done, but doesn't actually have any Hydralisks out. So he cannot morph in any Lurkers, even though he has the Lurker Den on the way. Roaches are looking for a good engagement. The Archon's going to be able to soak up a lot of hits over here and really do a good job tanking, as well as those Zealot Warpins are going to be acting in as a really, really nice buffer. So many of these Overseers are in the mix that with the Queens over there, those Phoenixes get immediately taken out. There's no way that there's going to be any kind of hidden detection that just is able to hold hold the line for PiLiPiLi, I should say. Immortals are doing quite a bit of damage, though, and it looks like with PiLiPiLi's additional reinforcing Warpins, and also the damage that he's doing on the outside of the map, cleaning up the main base worth of mining, not quite able to make anything else happen, but he should be able to hold over here. He doesn't have a 4th expansion out just yet, and he's sitting on pretty much just a Zealot Immortal army, which isn't exactly the best late game army. I still feel like PiLiPiLi's got a decent spot over here. 48 workers left over for JonSnow, but the Lurker Den is finishing up, and PiLiPiLi's got to start thinking about getting out an Oracle with that Stargate he made earlier on in the game, because he's going to need some detection very, very soon. And right now, he's busy with his Robotics Lilies, just producing as many Immortals as possible. He's up to 5, probably wants to rally this one in if he's going to try and move out further on the map. JonSnow's not really droning up, though. He is the low drone king. He's finally starting to try and sneak in 1 or 2 drones here and there, but trying to focus fire down this 4th expansion, because he knows I may not have the drones that you have or the workers you have, but I have a 4th expansion that you do not. War Prism going to come back in, and PiLiPiLi is saying, well, yeah, I'm not going to give you enough drones to mine off of that 4th expansion with, as these Zealots with +1 weapons versus +0 Carapace. Zergling's going to be able to clean up those Zerglings with the Hydras coming in the mix, and definitely turn that around very, very quickly. 4th expansion tries to go back up, and I think that this time JonSnow is going to be able to, or have a much harder time trying to get a cancel off on that, as PiLiPiLi is very much in position for it this time. Gonna be able to knock down those rocks as well, cutting down the surface area that JonSnow can move up that ramp, but Lurkers are now getting finished up, and this is the scary moment with no forms of detection, I believe, as besides this one observer. He's going to be relying on this Oracle that's going to be popping out pretty soon. So PiLiPiLi is on top of it. He knows what he's got to do. And the Oracle is going to be useful for that detection, but here comes in the Warp Prism, trying to continue that harassment. Oh, with the Zealots in the mix, and the entire army mostly over by that 4th expansion. Can PiLiPiLi actually just warp in a large round of Zealots and just focus fire down the Lurker Den? That could definitely cut into JonSnow's game plan, and there it is, definitely going to go down. No way you're going to save this. JonSnow loses his big tech advantage, even going to lose a couple of the Hydros and Roaches in the, to boot, as there's not a huge army over here, and these Zealots do have charge. They have +1 weapons. They don't trade out too terribly. Killing off a couple of those Roaches, a couple of those Hydras, and buying himself more time as JonSnow still sitting on 53 workers, and also now does not have the tech he needs to reproduce the Lurkers, or to produce additional Lurkers. He's only sitting on 6, which is good, but I mean, there's more than 6 Immortals out right now. Look at this boss Immortal, by the way. 12 kills, 11 kills, both of them very low in health. They've seen some stuff. They've seen some terrible, terrible war. War never changes, but I guess contamination does? Damn, this Immortal count is just absolutely insane. PiLiPiLi's got such a strong army to deal with a smaller sized Zerg army. But once it starts getting out to the maxed out point, I do feel like PiLiPiLi is going to get more and more favored. And that's not to say that PiLiPiLi isn't already favored given the army compositions right now, as the Lurker Den is trying to be built once again. Revelation was thrown down on a lot of these units. I don't think it was thrown down on the Lurkers. No, the Lurkers were not revelated, just the Zerglings and the Roaches and Hydras. PiLiPiLi is moving around at the same time, moving in with a Warp Prism, drops out a couple of units. Warp Prism loses some of its shield, so it backs out, but these Zealots are going to be able to continue to take out more and more of these drones at the same time he moves in over here, because that's where JonSnow is moving his army. He's not dealing with the Warp in over in the main base, although he does dedicate quite a bit of his army over here. Can he actually take a direct engagement? Oh, that Curse of Bile almost managed to land a hit on that Oracle. Zealots in the natural expansion and the main base get cleaned up, but JonSnow is once again reduced down to 48 workers. Lurker is going to be finishing up pretty quickly, and hey, might be an opportunity to pick off a couple of stray units over here as PiLiPiLi is in a bit of a limbo line. But PiLiPiLi, he's warping in more of these Archons. He's got more Immortals coming out. High Templars are finally getting into the mix for actual Storm. Does Storm have... No, Storm is not researched just yet. It's not probably going to be researched for a little bit, but look at this. PiLiPiLi's like, okay, attack the 5th. You don't have a 5th. All right, attack the 3rd. That's a good place to attack. And look at this. These Roaches are actually going to struggle to deal with all of these Zerglings. Zealots. And here we end up having the Archon drop, because why not? Why the hell not? What's going to be the first thing on the scene to respond? It's going to be Zerglings. These Archons did not give 2 damns about those Zerglings. And guess what? The Hydros in the mix. Warp Prism has the potential to pick up the Archons. Doesn't quite get it in time, but I mean, nice idea. Would have been able to get away with really, really good trades over there. I feel like the last remaining hope over here for JonSnow is the fact that, yeah, he has Carapace upgrades going for him. And he is not far behind in army supply. So if he can take a really good engagement, maybe he can make it work, but how do you take a good engagement versus this army? I suppose in a weird way, the Archons could end up working against you. Okay, that... Look at this Zealot not giving a damn. This Changeling is just like, yeah, I'm one of you. I got legs. Yeah, man, I got legs. I skate on my legs all the time. Do you use your legs? I use my legs. Revelation thrown down once again, and God, this Warp Prism has been such a value Warp Prism. PiLiPiLi also always keeps it alive, and we don't have Hive Tech coming out or anything along those lines. PiLiPiLi scouts that out, and not only that, but he's throwing out a Fleet Beacon back at home. And continues to just poke forward and say, well, you don't have a 5th expansion. 5th expansion is trying to go up finally for JonSnow, but JonSnow needs to find a way to move down the ramp or something and take a good engagement. What was that Corrosive Bile on? Did he kill an observer? No, definitely didn't kill an observer. I don't even know. But there is the big Unburrow. He's moving his units out into the center of the map, and he immediately has to retreat because JonSnow gets caught by PiLiPiLi's army that happens to be moving in at the exact right moment, because guess what? That revelation is so damn good. He sees more of these units trying to move in. Oh no, the rocks get knocked down. All these lurkers are gonna be picked off. There's no way to save them. They don't even bother burrowing. They're just trying to run for their pretty little lives. I mean, I would have loved if he had just at least pulled it back way over here. I mean, there would have been a fear that PiLiPiLi would just knock down these rocks and gone into a weird angle. But at least, yeah, he would have bought time for something like this, where he gets into a good position. He at least finally gets out into the center of the map. Big storms going down on top of a lot of the roaches and hydralisks. There's not a lot of defenses available left. The lurkers are still getting some good damage on. They clean up a majority of the front line, but here comes the reinforcing warp, and if he even needs it, he takes the engagement, and I feel like he's gonna take the game. PiLiPiLi qualifies for the second stage of the DreamHack Montreal event. That's PiLiPiLi winning and just showing again that kind of ridiculous run he's been on lately. Has had a couple of trip ups every so often, as I guess I didn't update the overlay. Has had a couple of trip ups, you know, losing to, I think it was Volts the other day in the NA Ladder Heroes monthly finals, but overall has been unbelievably solid and has been playing the best StarCraft of his life constantly. So big congratulations to PiLiPiLi. Is going to move on. I think that I'm going to check the bracket to see if Xenocider is finished up with his series. I don't see that the bracket's up to date on that, so maybe Xenocider's still around. We're going to have to a short little break while we look into that, see if that series, Xenocider versus Nice, is still happening. If there's any games left over, I will broadcast and cast those remaining games, but we're going to have to a short little break. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys soon. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much again for tuning in. It seems like the last series that could potentially be casted is Xenocider versus Nice, but I am being told by the admin that they are already in game 2. So because they're already in game 5, game 5 of the best of 5. So that means that there's no possible way for me to jump in to cast any more of the games. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, for any part of it that you guys did. I know I saw some really awesome familiar names in the chat. Obviously, the whole mod crew, I want to give a huge shout out to them because they've been doing a fantastic job today. But also, you know, big shout out to some of the other people that were tuning in. I know Pig was casting, and yes, Pig is casting this series. So I'm gonna try and host Pig, because Pig is not only casting this series, but he's a wonderful individual who's one of my favorite people in the whole goddamn world. So big love to Pig. Hopefully you guys will stick around and check this out. There's like proxy shenanigans. There's like Xenocider proxying is he? What? They're on first of all, Dasan Station. Xenocider's proxying a factory, and there's a mothership core attacking a supply depot. What on earth is going on over here? I don't even know. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna try and wrap this up as soon as possible. Big shout out, of course, to all the sponsors for BaseTradeTV. G2A, if you want to check them out, use the promo code BASE and you'll get 3% off on games that you order on the website. Chairs for Gaming, they're a fantastic organization that has these awesome DX racers. You can get them shipped using the promo code BaseTradeTV. You can get free shipping and handling on your chairs, as well as $20 off if you're in the United States or Canada. And I have been sitting in this chair pretty much the entire day today, so you know that these chairs are awesome. I wouldn't do this to myself if I didn't like the product. So cheers for gaming. Corsair is also a sponsor for Rifkin and Zombie Grab. They have some really awesome stuff. I had to take them off the overlay today because that's just sort of the way that things work with conflicting sponsors and everything for the DreamHack stuff. But also big shout out to Yord Wood Watches, who offers some really fantastic stuff. And damn it, okay, it looks like Pig just probably finished up, as I am now getting note, and I can say this because the 3-minute delay will mean that you guys are also going to be on 3-minute delay, so the game should be finished up or whatever, that's the 3-minute delay, but whatever, 5-minute delay, whatever the delay is, I forget. But looks like Xenocider just won 3-2. So big congratulations to Xenocider going over the full round of all the players who qualified. It is true Xenocider, Panda Bear Me. Hold on, I'm going to count the number of Zergs in this. So I got True, Xenocider, Panda Bear Me, Gosu Cham. We have Kelazur, so that's 2 Terran. Bales, our first Protoss player. Huck and PiLiPiLi. So we got 2 Terran, 3 Protoss, and 3 Zerg. What an amazingly balanced game we live in, guys. What an amazingly balanced game that we all play. That's about as even as you could ask for. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it. If you guys enjoyed my side of the broadcast, please let me know what you didn't enjoy. My name is Fear Dragon. You guys can reach me over at FearDragon64 on all social media and all that good stuff. But yeah, I want to know if you guys have any criticisms and everything. There's definitely things that I know I overused words, and I clearly need to brush up on some more of my game knowledge, but I'm still learning and I'm still looking to try and be a better commentator. And hopefully one day I'll be able to bring you guys the awesome coverage that you all deserve. But do let me know. You can let me know on Twitter or Twitch or anywhere basically that you can DM me. It's FearDragon64 pretty much everywhere. But yeah, I think the next thing up for BaseTradeTV, WCS EU server qualifiers, day number 2 are happening tomorrow. That's going to be done by Rifkin and Zombie Grub. I'm going to be doing the North American day 2 tomorrow as well, and that's going to be happening at 4 p.m. Pacific. So do stick or hopefully you guys will check that out tomorrow. And that is going to be it. So we'll find someone to host. We'll find someone awesome to host, and hopefully you guys decide to give them not even a lot of your time. Just give them 3 to 5 minutes. If you're looking for something to do, give them 3 to 5 minutes of your time to impress you, because it's really hard for streamers these days, especially in StarCraft 2, to get that big following. So you know what? Worst case, 3 minutes of your time gone, and you know, okay, cool, that's someone that I'm not really in. It doesn't really appeal to me. But if you find someone you do like, then hey, you got a new streamer you can watch. That's new entertainment value. It's like finding a new show. Do you know how happy I was when I realized that I could watch like The West Wing or watch Suits, or I think Rick and Morty is another one? Like, I was so happy. This is like another form of that. So do stick around if you can, or if you're willing to check out and just give a little bit of love to this next person. And also go watch them on their channel. I'll post links in the chat and everything. So don't just watch it through the host. Go interact with them. But thank you all so much for tuning in. You all been lovely today, and I'll see you all tomorrow.